It was 1993. John Major was privatising British Rail and Bill Clinton was settling in at the White House. The first Premier League season was underway. Jurassic Park would be premiered in Leicester Square and Whitney Houston was topping the charts. 18-year-old Stephen Lawrence was an A-level student with high hopes of going on to be an architect. On the night of the 22nd of April, he and his friend Dwayne Brooks were making their way home to Plumstead. A lightning strike at Catford bus station had meant that the buses were all out, so they found themselves here on Wellhall Road in Eltham. They changed buses at the roundabout and walked up Wellhall Road to catch a bus here at this bus stop. In fact, it was the 161 that would bring them home. Eyewitnesses said they were nice and happy. They were chatting on what was a cold, clear night. But as they waited, they became impatient, so decided to retrace their steps back to the roundabout and think about catching an alternative bus home. It was when they got to the roundabout that they saw a group of 5 young white men running at them from that direction. Dwayne turned very quickly and called to his friend Stephen to run. There were reports that racist comments were shouted, but the jury could never get any real specific evidence on that. So as Dwayne ran, he began to cross the road. Stephen Lawrence was a little bit behind him. And then when they got to the junction here of Dixon Road and Wellhall Road, the jury heard that the group of 5 white young men collided with Stephen. The attack took only 10 seconds. In that time, he was kicked and beaten and stabbed twice. Post-mortem said that the second wound was likely to have been inflicted when he was lying there on the tarmac. The group then ran off down Dixon Road here. Some said they ran off quickly, others said they walked away calmly. From this point, Stephen staggered to his feet and began to run to join his friend Dwayne Brooks, who had gotten across the road. In an emotional testimony at the Old Bailey, Dwayne Brooks recalled how Stephen seemed confused and was asking why he couldn't run properly. He was unaware of the serious injuries he'd sustained. The court also heard that it was because he was so young and fit that he managed to run about 200 metres up that road, which is really a huge achievement considering the damage that had been done to the main arteries going into his heart. This is the spot where Stephen ran. From here, you get a real sense of the distance he managed to cover. The houses on the right-hand side. At the bottom of them, that's the junction of Dixon Road where the attack happened. And this is the distance he managed to cover when he was severely injured. He fell to the ground here, and within a few seconds some cars stopped. They began to give him help. A couple came out of the church across the road. They also gave what little first aid they could, but over the last 18 years many questions have been asked about the quality of that first aid. Even when the emergency services arrived, the police in name, there was questions asked whether they could have done more. It wasn't checked particularly well. The ambulance did arrive and they brought him to a nearby hospital. It's closed now, but it was just up the top there on Shooters Hill Road. But it all played out here. On this very spot, a black marble plaque still commemorates it. As I mentioned, the group ran off down Dixon Road, and it brings you into this area. It's a maze of suburban streets. 15 days after the attack, the police arrived here to Phineas Pett Road. It was where Gary Dobson's home place was. They also raided the home of David Norris and a few of their friends and seized evidence including jackets, jeans and jumpers. Gary Dobson's mother gave an alibi for her son, insisting he was making toast in the kitchen here on the night of the attack, in fact at the exact time of the attack. David Norris's mother was accused of inventing an alibi for her son. She insisted that he was at home at their house in Chislehurst. And so began 18 years of evidence handling, storage and transportation, and it's during that process the defence claim that the forensic exhibits could have become contaminated. Let me explain on a scaled down version what they claim to have happened. The clothing exhibit seized from one of the suspects' homes was examined on a bench in a forensic lab. When that process was finished, the exhibit was taken and put inside a paper police envelope. The first question you've got to ask is, now that this envelope is touching the table, could any of the fibres from the garment be on the outside of the envelope? The envelope was sealed and put into storage, or indeed transported in another bigger bag with a similar envelope that had gone through the exact same process containing Stephen Lawrence's clothes. These two bags go together, and the question is whether fibres on the outside of the envelopes could have transferred and thus contaminated the exhibits inside. When it got back to another lab, the envelope touched the bench again, the new garment came out, was there contamination? The jury, all along, had to decide whether that theory could explain away all of the forensic evidence.